Hey there, friends, and welcome to your Lucid Living Show, where you join and participate with us in our essential conversations with ordinary people achieving the extraordinary. I'm your host, George E. Green. The Lucid Living Show is brought to you and sponsored by the mindfulnessadvantage.com. Thank you for staying with us for the next hour. My featured guest today is our friend Jessica Dewell, CEO of Infusion Principal and Chief Digital Strategist and Purposer at Red Direction. We'll be bringing Jessica on to talk about the keys to your epic success and vision building in just a few moments after our opening segment, First Words. You, my friends, are visionaries. Regardless of what you are envisioning and creating, whether a quick stretch or a big run, a beautiful painting, your next blog post or first published book, a mid-afternoon snack, or an elegantly delicious feast, we all first feel, then see our desired outcome on the inner, then map and take action to bring our idea and vision to life. The reality is you practice vision building countless times each and every day. When it comes to your big ideas, your grand visions and outcomes, well, that becomes a different story entirely. The bigger your vision, the more you are required to stretch beyond your familiar zones of comfort to achieve and receive it. And we are indeed creatures of comfort and familiarity. Excuse me. What emerges along your evolutionary arc of vision building is most intriguing, for to pursue any worthy outcome, you will encounter and experience a great inspiration and surprising assistance, as well as great doubt and resistance. What is required to achieve and exceed your envisioned outcomes is quite simply to make building and bringing your vision to life your daily vocation. Your epic success depends on your desire and willingness to do the work and do it daily. Again, our featured guest, Jessica Dewell, and I have been enjoying an ongoing and evolving conversation in and around what I call the art and science of vision building. We each have taken ideas that were way bigger than we thought we were, then stretched into our true selves and into what our vision required and requires of us. Join me, friends, in welcoming Jessica Dewell to our show. Jessica, thanks for being with us today.
Wow, George, I loved your opening comments, and thank you for having me. I'm honored. It's always great to see where our conversations go, and I'm a big believer in the continuation of conversations because we get to where we're going by building on ideas and helping each other get there in the world of the giving and the receiving in our life.
Indeed, and you bring up a great point about ongoing conversations and staying in the game, and we invite you as viewers and you in the replay to join us in our conversation. It's just not two, it's us and we and you that are in this conversation. And we value your questions, your opinions, and your comments. So get in the game, get your type on, and let's hear and see what you think and feel as we open up the door to your epic success. So there's a quote out there that's an unknown quote. It's not attributed to anyone, that I'm really, really fond of, and it's quite simply, if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough. So first and foremost, part of our conversation today is really identifying the reality that we are indeed creatures of familiarity, and that's not just emotional, it's neurophysiological familiarity. We're wired for what we've accepted as real and what's possible. Now, Jesse, I know that you have sort of made a career out of ginning up some big ideas and scaring yourself. So from your perspective, what have you learned in building infusion principle and red direction?
There's a lot that I have learned, and there's a guy that's really famous that can say what I can say cleaner, crisper, and it will resonate with every single one of you. It's Nietzsche, and he said, and I'm going to read this verbatim, "He who has a why to live can bear with almost any how." And to me, that really sums it up. I know the why I'm here. And in fact, some days I don't know my why that I'm here, but I know the place that I'm going, and I know the actions that occur and that are every single day that are consistent with getting me to where I'm going. It doesn't matter what the family circus type of path it takes to get there. And that's it. There's a part of the joy of the journey, the understanding that there's an ability that we have and this innate desire that we've got to go figure things out. And when stuff is the hardest, it's one of two things. One, we got a little too serious and we need to lighten up. Or two, we're in that place of stretch. We're in that place of growth where it seems like nothing is like we had ever imagined it, and nothing is like anything that came before us, and we're in this new territory.
Right. It's a familiar place, and it's also a place that many of us end up trying to keep at arm's length. One because of resistance, another because of fear and doubt. So one of the outcomes I desire and require that we create today is to open the door and pave the road. I know I'm mixing metaphors and images there. Open the door and pave the road and put the casserole in the oven.
At the same time.
Yeah.
While you hop on one foot.
To really reignite enthusiasm for you, our friends out there, that have these ideas, these shiny ideas, and the biggest ones are the ones where there's this juxtaposition of I have to do this. It becomes consuming, and then the other side of the spectrum is this is really scary. I'm not big enough. Well, the idea was born from you, so you are first, and two, every idea that's bigger than us, we grow and stretch from the inside out to fit that vision, to allow ourselves to grow into the ability to see, to taste, and to feel that vision more than just as we're building it, but from the beginning, see, feel, and taste it as already done. That's the key of visionary vision building.
And I'm going to plug your first two shows for a minute, George, because...
Thank you.
You're welcome. This is the third in a series that you're doing, and with the first one, finding a mentor and having a dream, and the second one, building out the plan and what is it going to look like, really leads up to what we're talking about today, which is discipline and focus. And we have to have a discipline to be able to succeed, because if we're walking around and we're scared out of our pants all the time, yet we're not doing anything, it's going to end up being a comfortable chair that we sit around in and go, oh yeah, well, I'm in this place of stretch. Well, actually you're not, because you haven't moved. You're in the same place in the same stretch forever and ever. And so, and a lot of people get stuck in the planning. There's something in taking that step. There's something that says, okay, now I'm in this place of unknown, and I think I can, just like the little engine that could, yet we'd rather plan more than to actually go over the top of that mountain to come down the other side when we can say, I thought I could. Mm-hmm. And that goes back to living the dream. And it's really cool and very serendipitous that these two conversations occurred, because earlier this week on the Jess Plus Scott Plus You show, where we were hosting Kate Boyer, she wrote a book and she was talking about her big dream and that she lives her dream every day. And I was thinking about it and what does it mean to really live a dream? And we left the conversation, and that's been floating around in my brain, and it turns out it's discipline. Mm-hmm. It's discipline to take action and say, is what I'm doing right now helping my end goal? So if I turn around and I say, okay, right after the show, I'm going to do whatever I'm going to do. Let's say I'm going to take the trash out. Okay, well, that's a very simple thing. what does that allow me to do? It allows my house to not be cluttered so that I have the space to think both to the feeling and the touching and the sensory pieces, and I'm taking care of myself in my own way by doing that little task so that I can live my dream, which then might be a creative piece of work, or it might be baking cookies with my son, because part of my big dream includes the work piece, but it also includes my family piece.
Indeed. You know, you raise a really great point. It's one of my philosophies, one of the things that it is a repetitive meme and invitation to myself in my relationships and then my professional relationships with my client partners. And that is, the key to your epic success is knowing that everything you do all day long is indeed connected to your outcome. And that's sort of a unification of mind, body, and heart. So when you're on purpose and you're clear on your purpose of seeing your outcome, then taking out the garbage is no longer some bit of life that's disconnected, because when you do it purposefully and you remember that taking out the garbage or paying your bills or any of the number
or whatever,
any number of things that are seemingly unrelated, everything you do goes towards your fulfillment. So we're going to shift gears here real quick and just give a shout out to some of our friends. Dave Pipe is in the house from Sussex in the UK. We've got Cheryl Deuce dropping in for a short. Excuse me, Christine L Bowen, CLB, in the house. Let's see who else. Nicole Levac stopped in around 12 minutes after the hour. And Scott, your partner Scott, has committed to come watch the replay, it looks like. So let's see.
So we could talk, let's talk about discipline. It's so cool that all these people, thank you everybody for joining us, and thank you to everybody who's going to watch this after our live show concludes here, because there's a reason that you are here, and I'm so excited that you get to be part of this conversation. And so the discipline is involved in, okay, how is this helping what you're doing today, this week, next week, to get to your goal? And I'm going to switch from dream to goal during this conversation, because when I love living the dream, and I think it's great, and I think that's really important. I also think we get caught in, we never get to our dream because it's always evolving. So I'm going to say, to get to our long-term goals, we live our dream today. And how do we do that? And that's by doing things that are in alignment with where we're going, what we're doing, whether that's showing support, being a mentor, helping out, participating in the concept of, I've got an idea and I'm going to share it out because I know it will benefit somebody, and then receiving the conversation and the feedback to grow that idea to help each one of us that interacts with it on our own individual paths. Yeah. And that requires a lot of when we think about business, it's hard, George. It's hard because we actually then have to separate business from ourself in discipline that way, because the business dream might be very different than the me dream running my business. Exactly.
And just to add a wee bit to the whole shifting from dream to goal, I think there's really a progression here. The dream is the spark. It's the what if. The vision becomes the process of building and mapping that, and the goal or outcome is the end result. So, and those are, for some people, those words are interchangeable, but often when we say dream, I'm trained in conscious language, we associate, many of us, dreams with unfulfilled desires.
Yes.
Yes. A dream is a dream because it does not have life and breath and texture, and it does not have inertia or animus. So back to
example, George.
I'm sorry?
I said I can even give you an example of this, okay? So I drive a little Mazda 3. My dream car is a Ford Raptor. Okay, that is within my budget. It is within, there's a Ford dealership really close to my car, but it's a dream on purpose. I don't want to realize that dream for a variety of other reasons because it doesn't align with my longer term vision. It's my dream to own that car, and I'll ogle that car every time I see it, but my personal impact on the environment and the amount that I travel by myself and the fact I don't haul anything with, except for my laptop, whatever else goes into that vision, it means that for me, my Ford Raptor is going to stay a dream. It will never become a part, I shouldn't say never because that's a long time, but right at this moment in time, it doesn't further my long-term goals and objectives of what I want to achieve in this life. So it can be my dream, and I can have a great time looking at it and wondering about it, and it makes me excited to think about, and we need those things. We need those things that fuel our curiosity and that we could go window shop for or explore or find somebody who owns one and get a ride in one, right?
Indeed. I have a great example as well, and that is when I moved from Austin to Colorado, I moved to Louisville, which is now east of here over the hill from Boulder. Shortly, about 6 months into my stay in Louisville, I had occasion to attend an event here in Boulder, and it was in the far western part of the Mapleton Hill neighborhood, which gorgeous houses and tree-lined esplanades, and I was walking through the neighborhood to get to this event, and I thought, oh my gosh, how wonderful would it be to live in or by this neighborhood? And now I am 4 blocks away from where that event was. And it was a moment of singular presence and appreciation. I drank in that moment. I said, what if? And I also said how wonderful it is or would be to live here. And here I am living. So
oh, well, that's focus, George. That's fabulous because we need focus. 1, to be able to open the door to the opportunity, the what if, and 2, the discipline to go, I deserve this, I want this, and then letting the universe give us the opportunity to show up. And if our focus is laser pointed, we can achieve anything.
There's a lot of desire and wonder and embracing possibility in that moment a year ago when I planted the seed for my fulfillment. I want to bring a little something up here around discipline, the D word, and maybe take a little bit of the sting away from that, because even people who are disciplined quite possibly don't have the healthiest relationship with discipline. And what I want to emphasize here that both Jesse and I do is we make a practice of building our outcomes. We make a practice of acquiring the behaviors, the mindsets, the skill sets that forward our momentum and motion into our outcomes. It's our practice that builds something that we call discipline. And that's very important. So, because what we're talking about today is doing the work and making our vision building and receiving our vision our daily vocation. So there's an author of mine that's required reading for my Mindfulness Advantage client partners, and that is the author Steven Pressfield. Originally it was his book, The War of Art, which is separated into 3 volumes or books. Book 1 is entirely devoted to resistance, doubt, and fear. And then I finally got to read a couple of weeks ago his book called Do the Work. Our title today is in honor of Pressfield's book, Do the Work, which is an even deeper dive into resistance. The reality here, we've heard this for the last 2 shows. I'm going to repeat it in this show. Is the bigger your vision, the greater your fire of idea, the longer the shadow you will cast. And the way Pressfield describes the generative relationship with our doubt, our fear, and our resistance is quite simply to sit with and make friends with those things rather than being an adversarial relationship. Because if you make a career out of stretching, you make a career out of having grand ideas or even small ideas that you can map and bring to life, you will always be stretching beyond yesterday's limits, and you will always bring up some bit of fear or doubt or resistance. They become your flags, your benchmarks, your push notifications, if you will, that you're on the right path. So, Jessica, how have you been scaring yourself lately?
Oh, well, you know, before I talk about scaring myself, I want to add to what you said about discipline, because there's discipline in life for how we show up, and that's a really big part of it, how I show up. And sometimes I show up and I don't know what's going to happen, and that scares the pants off me. Sometimes I'm like, well, I don't have anything to do. I'm going to show up in the moment with nothing and see what happens, which can also be a very scary thing sometimes. So relative to what we're talking about, whether we're thinking about it from a big idea, because George, I hear you going, here's our big ideas, we're always going to have big ideas to be, to scare the pants off ourselves. We could also come from it, what is the most challenging procedure and process I could possibly make to help the world, right? That's a totally different perspective, still the same end goal, the same end dream, but we can scare the pants off ourselves and get challenged at the same time. And then there's the idea of, and I would say then the behavior piece, where are we going to show up? What are our actions going to do? Are they in alignment with what we say? Because for me, when I am tested regularly, I come from the third group more than the rest. I love people who can do the structure thing. Pretty amazing. I'm in awe of you. That's a place of energy drain for me. Living in a goal that's really big and you're, you know, in the sky and there's nothing concrete about it, I like to do, and eventually I just get sucked down and I'm like, I got to just act. And sometimes that's scary, just getting out of the thought process and going, now what do? I act to plan, and that's something that is really required, and that can be the hardest step for me. And then, you know, when I think about some of the other things around that would be trusting in the timing. For me, that's also a big one, because I'm like, let's go, let's go, let's go. And sometimes, you know, a tree only grows so fast.
I know that one intimately. I don't want it now. I want it yesterday. Yeah,
and now those are things that don't seem really directly related to how am I stretching to scare myself in that sense, or how am I putting myself in this place of uncomfortable where the unknown is right on the other side if we just hang with it long enough to see and to break through. And that's huge, and that comes to, it really does come down to our actions. So whether, it doesn't matter which place we start from, we actually have to do things. We actually have to decide. And part of that decision is saying no to some things. Part of that decision is saying, when I'm doing some action, is it in line with this long-term goal, vision that I have? And if it's not, why am I doing it? Not that I can't do it, not that I won't do it, but why? And that, the everyday moments are where I find the greatest stretch these days.
Yeah.
Now, and so I want to talk about that, because we don't have to go very far from home. We don't even have to go from the edges, far from the edges of our desk, to find a place to stretch, to find a place to go, okay, when something comes up, I immediately have a reaction. Like this morning, I was taking Carter to school, and I'm like, do I have time before my 9 o'clock meeting to go to PCC to get my favorite tea? And I barely did, but I was like, why would I drive 20 minutes out of my way to just get a cup of tea when I wanted to come home and have a cup of tea and prepare for this conversation? Right? So there was a habit that came into play, and I had to make that choice, and it was really uncomfortable. It was really uncomfortable to drive the opposite direction away from the grocery store and my favorite tea to come home. Yet when I got home and I made my bulletproof tea, and I was sitting and I was reviewing our notes from our conversation, and I was reviewing some of the things that I liked, I was like, yeah. And I immediately felt the the energy. I immediately felt the warmth. I immediately felt the possibility in that choice. So both choices are right. Neither one would have changed the outcome of us having this great conversation now. But I do think that it saved some energy for me for later, to be able to make it farther along in the day. And so when I think about stretching and I think about uncomfortableness, I want to think about like moment to moment in a day, wherever we start from. Because that's part of our journey too.
A lot of what we're calling stretch is strategy. It's actually
focus and
strategy.
Choice.
Focusing, being able to ask the inner question, am I in full alignment, or am I in the greatest alignment with my outcomes, or am I suffering from shiny syndrome, which is, oh, look, tea 20 minutes down the road, or
that's right, that's right.
Or oh, let me go read 6 different articles, on content generation instead of generating my content. So we're going to jump into scaring ourselves, but right now I want to do some more shout-outs and acknowledge our friends who are with us in the conversation. Kristen Drysdale is in the house. Let's see, Christine L Bowen. She's really enthusiastic about what we're sharing and what you're sharing. Let's see, Scott is in the house with us live. Nicole Levac says, love that the D word is replaced by practice what we do. Do the work is off the chain, CLB. Julie Caraccio is in the house with us. Let's see what else. Christine L Bowen says, reminds me of a Warren Buffett quote, the most successful people say no to almost everything. That's really important. That could be a whole other show, is yes and no. In fact, it's on. We're doing it.
And I'm going to do a shameless plug. That was the basis of part of our conversation Tuesday at the JSY show.
All right. And you know what? I love supporting you and Scott. So before we're done or after we complete, please put the link to that event up, because I haven't seen it yet, but it's on deck for me to watch this weekend. Actually, I'm not sure how many of you folks are on and watch so many Hangouts on Air shows, because if I watched as many as I liked, I wouldn't sleep. So, that's another decision of strategy, is weighing which ones are going to feed me and my goal as much as possible.
Can I throw something out there? This word alignment comes up a lot, so I'm going to hold that thought, but I want to come back to alignment when you finish.
Yeah, and just a station ID here, we are about 2/3 of the way through the show. You're watching the wrong show, the Lucid Living Show, hosted by the mindfulnessadvantage.com. I'm your host, George E. Green, and we have Jessica Dewell. She's my favorite unicorn rider, and a lot of our really shiny, great friends in the audience today. And we are talking about do the work of vision building, and not just building your vision, but actually receiving your fulfillment. There are a lot of people, again, not only do they keep their relationship with their vision at arm's length, they resist receiving their vision. That all has to do with familiarity. If you're used to having 10 units of yum in your life, and somebody says, hey, would you like 100? There's a part of you that goes, yeah, but there's another part that goes, I'm used to 10. I don't know what I can do with it. Figure it out. Just say yes.
Just say yes. That's
all
right.
Right. So we've got about another 8 or 9 minutes before we go to our final segment, Your Moments in Mindfulness. So, Jessica, you were about to talk about alignment, I believe?
Yes. We are hearing this term alignment, which I love. I absolutely love the idea of alignment. However, it carries the opportunity to take us away from our end goal, and with the illusion of the vision that we have in our day-to-day moment. So I might align myself with people who think like I do, I also need to align myself with people who challenge my thinking. I would like to align myself with people who have the same life values that I do. I also want to align myself with people who challenge and suggest and bring opportunities for where our society is going and how do we work together as a team as that changes. And so I think when we start thinking about alignment, we kind of get these blinders on. And to take a step back and go, there are a lot of different things we need to align with, and when we focus on them, that's what we get. So if we only focus on aligning with people that think like us and talk like us, and we cheer each other on, if there's only cheering, nobody's growing. And so that's what I want.
Great point. That's brilliant, and it requires courage.
It requires a lot of courage.
You know, I watched a video, a two-part video by a fella who has a massive following on Facebook. I think his fan page is in Veritas, and he's like a science uber geek, and he really laid open the demise of Facebook as a viable social media platform. And one of the things that he talked about was the diminished returns because of the edge rank. You end up in a very short amount of time seeing things on your wall, as they call it on Facebook, that only agree with your tastes. And I remember back when Facebook was the wild, wild west, and it was, you know, wide open and egalitarian. It was this amazing spectrum of opinions and dialogues and discussions. And now you get on, like I clicked on 2 or 3 videos when I was posting on Facebook, and now 3/4 of my wall is all videos. So that's one example of, if you don't seek out counsel from people that are willing to serve you in the way of giving you perhaps contrary opinions or playing the devil's advocate. If you don't look through someone else's eyes, or especially if you don't step into the shoes of those you wish to influence and serve, you're never going to get past your comfort levels. And what you do may be valuable, but our commitment, our outcome, is to achieve the extraordinary.
And we do that by celebrating the little things that we get every single day. I mean, we might end up with an extra phone call of somebody that happens to be the right person at the right time that was in our network that comes out of the blue because of some other problem that we were working on, and we're intentionally focusing. We have the discipline to spend time on it every day. Mm-hmm. We're letting our subconscious do its work as well, which is also a type of discipline. And the universe starts providing these ideas and these connections and rekindling things at the right time to achieve that. And it is this cycle, and I love this. This is my little equation, which is giving plus receiving equals value. And it means a lot in the sense of what we're talking about, and I want to turn this back to how do we actually make money out of this? Well, if we're giving, if we have our idea, we're taking action, we're saying yes to the right things, we're aligning ourselves in multiple ways that support this end vision and goal that we have. That means we're living our dream today, and we are able to have appreciate the serendipity, have the wonder and the excitement and the curiosity that comes from just being around every single day. That's all part of the giving and the receiving. But when we're talking about business, we're out there in these social transparent companies, and there's this big shift of, well, we've got to give, and then somebody will eventually buy. Yes and no. Sure, some people will buy. It's not leveraged. What leverages the opportunity, the value, when somebody sees value, it's that they are also part of the process. So we and our businesses and our teams have to be really willing to receive and own and accept that not only are we aligning ourselves to gather all of this stuff to give, but the stuff that's mushed around and shared around that's coming into our consciousness actually is a gift. And when we receive that gift, when we hear what, George, when you and I talk, when I hear what you say, and I actually stand in the moment when we're done with our conversations, and then I go about my day, I see so much more than if I just get off and go to the next thing. And it takes 30 seconds. It takes 10 seconds. Sometimes it's like, okay, now what's the one thing I need right now? And what the first thing that comes in is the right thing, and that's self-trust. But I have to be willing to receive, George, from you to grow, to reinforce my discipline, to reinforce my focus, and to trust myself in the process that you want to support me as much as I want to support you. And that creates an environment for the exchange of money, which I term value.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. And we're required to engineer that into our vision, into our mindset, and our skill set. This is, again, a whole other show about claiming and cultivating your own intrinsic value. I'm going to say that again. Claiming and cultivating your own intrinsic value. I tell you, I've been coaching and mentoring in some form or fashion for the last 30 years, and one of the most common examples of our humanity is really not being a badass, really not claiming whatever your shiny bit is, whatever you're here to do, whatever you love. Again, it's at arm's length, and so part of the reason we're here, Jesse and I, is to invite you to get over your doubts, make friends with them. They're always going to be there, but to stand in your fire, renew your relationship, your most essential relationship with your heart, because it's what you love, it's the thing that you have to do that animates you ultimately. And the more we keep that at arm's length, the less we nurture and animate our lives, period. So, all right, we're getting down to the last 4 minutes. Jesse, in 1 minute, throw down with your call to inspiration and action in the context of vision building and doing the work.
Leaders, you have a following. Each and every one of you watching this show is a leader. And knowing that, understanding the giving and the receiving and the value aspects that create your unique secret sauce that puts yourself out there in a way that you can achieve new things, celebrate the now, and see where you're going and how amazing this path is that you're on, comes down to the fact that both George and I love to work with people that are setting a standard, that they've said, this is where I'm going to be, this is what I'm going to own, and the work that I do extends beyond into the greater world, beyond my company, my team, my whatever, right? Fill in that blank. Yeah. And that each small action builds upon the next, and that's the momentum piece. And we can have many, many small snowballs, but they're going to move a lot slower than one little snowball that can turn into an avalanche. So less is also more. And keep watching George's show. Stop by the Jess plus Scott plus You show, because we have great conversations with thoughtful people. And the other thing would be is, here comes infusion principle too. There's so much. I think I just hit my limit though of my minute, so I'm going to just hook it.
All right. Here's the great news: is we're going to do an after-show green room party for at least 15 minutes. And Jessica, if you would, please put your a link to where you'd like to send our viewers in the comment section. And my 1 minute before we move into your moments in mindfulness is the whole reason I do this show is because at some point my interactions and my ability to make a difference in other people's lives one-on-one simply was not enough for me. I love what I do. I'll never stop. The results that we create, I and my client partners, are extraordinary. But my stretch, what scares me, is getting in front of a camera and challenging you to do the same, make a difference, create from possibility miraculous outcomes. That's why we're here. If you're not entertaining that idea, well, your backside is stuck to the bench. Get up off the bench and get in the game, friends. What I do is I assist people. I give them tools and practices that help them to learn how to incrementally move forward, to stretch into their dreams and their visions, to achieve mastery and friendship and a new relationship with their resistance, their fears, and their doubts. So whether it's with me or getting resources of a book or finding another coach, do it. Get out there and get it done. My thanks again to Jessica Dewell. And oh my gosh, you know, there's going to be at least one more series or two series, I believe, if you're willing, Jesse, where it's just you and I setting fires and shaking the trees over and over and over again. I have more fun than seems like it's legally allowed when you and I play, so I appreciate that. All right, people, stand by for the after-party green room throwdown. And now, friends, it's time for our final segment, your moments in mindfulness, excuse me. Your vision, your dream, and greatest imagined outcomes. These are all delicate endeavors, especially when building the foundations for your epic success. The most potent and powerful skill and mindsets you can bring to any of your creative adventures are your mindful, laser beam focus, your heart, and your enthusiasm. Just like your new story you are authoring with us right now, this day. Every story of success, every map and path to the inevitable fulfillment and fruition, every great leader, champion, and trailblazer all began with their single spark of ideation and inspiration. You have within you the means to imagine and create great works, to establish and nurture your legacy, to leave the world better somehow than you found it. You were born to be brilliant, born to see and breathe in the oceans of possibility, then harness their infinite power and your imagination to build and bring your visions and dreams to life. Seek out and find your mentor, your coach, your partner in visioning and creation. Build and nurture your idea as you develop and implement your map and strategy forward into your ultimate outcome and fulfillment. Quite simply, do the work required for your epic success and do it daily. It's your slow and steady hand, your unwavering steps one after another forward into fruition that creates and sustains your inspiration and your momentum. Be bold. Be brilliant. Be courage. Keep your eyes on your prize. Welcome to your next and greatest adventure, my friends. Let's play. My thanks again to Jessica Dewell and our producer, Andy Brine. I'm your host, George E. Green, and this is the Lucid Living Show. We'll see you next time. Be sure to join us in just a moment in our after show green room party. Thanks again.